Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is putting on deodorant. They're doing it without thinking. Swipe, swipe, done. It's one of the most automatic habits a human being has. So automatic that most of us would feel genuinely uncomfortable skipping it for even a single day. But soap, as we use it today, the thing that makes you smell like ocean breeze or fresh linen, is actually a pretty recent invention in the grand timeline of being human. And the version of clean you grew up with is younger than you might think. Homo sapiens have existed for roughly 300,000 years. That's the figure scientists generally use for how long our species has been walking around on this planet, more or less looking the way we do now. Mass-produced bar soap, the kind you'd actually recognize on a supermarket shelf, has existed for less than 200 years. If you lined up the entire history of our species as a single crowd stretching off into the distance, soap shows up in literally the last few people at the very end of the line. So for over 99% of human history, what did we actually smell like? And how did anyone manage to stand being near each other? Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Early humans almost certainly smelled like smoke. Constant, heavy wood smoke, clinging to skin and hair every single day for an entire lifetime. Fire wasn't optional. It was cooking, warmth, and protection. So the smell of it would have been baked into everyone, permanently. And here's a small twist. Smoke is actually a decent natural antiseptic. It's part of the reason smoked meat doesn't spoil as quickly. So that thick, ever-present smoky smell may have been doing some quiet hygienic work, completely by accident, long before anyone understood why. Rain and rivers did most of the rest of the work. Plain water removes a surprising amount of surface dirt and sweat, just on its own. The problem is, water is terrible at removing one specific thing: oil. Natural skin oil just sits there, repelling water completely. You can rinse for an hour, and your skin will still feel greasy afterward, because water and oil simply don't mix. Which is exactly why, across completely separate ancient civilizations that had zero contact with each other, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond, people independently arrived at the same solution: scrubbing the body with sand, clay, or wood ash. It's abrasive. It physically scrapes oil, sweat, and dead skin off the body, in roughly the same way an exfoliating scrub works today. It also, almost certainly, hurt a little. Now here's the part everyone secretly wants to hear about. Ancient Romans used urine as a cleaning agent, and not as some desperate last resort, as an actual, intentional, collected ingredient. Urine contains ammonia, and ammonia is genuinely excellent at breaking down grease and whitening fabric. Roman launderers, called fullers, actually placed large pots on street corners specifically so people could contribute. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. Whether people regularly used it directly on their skin is still debated by historians. But it tells you something important about ancient hygiene. When something worked, nobody cared how unpleasant it sounded. Because here's the thing. The Romans actually had one of the most advanced hygiene routines in the entire ancient world. It just looked nothing like ours. Step 1. Cover your entire body in olive oil. Step 2. Scrape it back off using a curved metal tool called a strigil, specifically designed to drag oil, sweat, and dirt off the skin in a single smooth motion. It worked basically like a squeegee, but for your entire body. Only after all of that came the actual bath, shared, communal, and used by dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people across a single day. So, clean, in ancient Rome, meant oiled, scraped with a metal blade, and then rinsed in water that several other people had already bathed in before you. Progress, it turns out, is relative. Real soap, the actual chemical kind, made by combining fat with ash or alkaline salts, does go back surprisingly far. The earliest known evidence comes from ancient Babylon, around 2800 BC, found inscribed directly onto clay cylinders. But here's the twist nobody expects. That early soap wasn't made for human bodies at all. It was used almost entirely for cleaning wool and textiles. For literally thousands of years, soap was cleaning people's clothes long before anyone thought to put it on their own skin. The first solid evidence of a soap-like substance actually meant for the human body comes from Egypt, around 1500 BC, in a medical document called the Eber's Papyrus. It described mixing animal and plant oils with alkaline salts, used partly for washing and partly to treat existing skin conditions. So skincare and basic hygiene were tangled together right from the very start, not separate categories the way we think of them now. Then, after all that progress, things actually got worse, significantly worse. In medieval and early modern Europe, regular bathing fell dramatically out of fashion. For a long stretch of European history, many people genuinely believed that bathing was dangerous, that hot water opened up your pores and let invisible disease float straight into your body. So entire generations actively avoided washing, believing it kept them safer. So instead of washing, people leaned hard into perfume. Strong, often overwhelming scent, layered directly on top of bodies that weren't being washed nearly as often as we'd expect. This is roughly where the modern idea of perfume as a luxury good really took hold. Not as something added on top of cleanliness, but used as a direct replacement for it. For most of history, in most places on Earth, body odor simply wasn't shocking. It was just the smell of being alive. Everyone had it, all the time, and there was nowhere to escape it, so nobody really tried. So when did things finally start to flip the other way? By the 1800s, in Victorian England, cleanliness suddenly became fashionable, almost a status symbol. One brand in particular, Pear's soap, became the first bar that didn't look like something scraped out of a bucket. It was elegant, clear, almost glamorous. Pear's actually paid a famous actress of the era for one of history's earliest celebrity endorsements, just to put her name next to their soap. Suddenly, which soap you used said something about who you were. But the bigger shift came from somewhere far less glamorous. The Industrial Revolution made soap cheap enough, for the very first time, for ordinary working households to actually afford it daily, not just the wealthy. Then came germ theory in the late 1800s, the actual scientific discovery that invisible microbes, not bad smells or bad air, were what caused disease. That single discovery rewired how the entire world thought about cleanliness in less than one human lifetime. Washing stopped being a fashion statement and became basic self-defense, which means the version of clean you grew up with, daily showers, antibacterial soap, deodorant as a non-negotiable morning step, is genuinely, surprisingly new. In some families, it's younger than your own great-great-grandparents. For 99% of the time humans have existed on this planet, clean meant wood smoke, river water, gritty sand, an oiled metal scraper, and occasionally deliberately collected urine. And somehow, against all odds, the species survived every bit of it. So next time you're standing in the shower, mildly annoyed that you're out of body wash, just remember what the alternative used to be.